Assalamualaikum. Welcome to this video tutorial on ASP.NET 4.5 for students at King Faisal University and for others who want to learn ASP.NET. This is part 21 in this series entitled ADO.NET in ASP.NET 4.5 using C Sharp. ADO.NET is an essential technology in .NET to interact with databases, but it is not the only way. But coding this will surely make our hands dirty, so I hope you're ready. When we use ADA.NET, we should think about two groups, the connection to data source and the containers of data. Connection to data source means having a data provider. Different databases such as SQL Server and Oracle have different data providers in ADA.NET. For SQL Server, we're going to use system.data SQL client and system.data. There are two ways to access data, by direct access or by disconnected data access. For now, we will use direct access. These are the steps to direct data access. First, we have to create a connection string, and then a SQL connection, then a command using SQL command, then a SQL data reader. Then we have to use that reader. We have to close the connection and then send the page to users. For activity number 21, we will create an ASP.NET website and we will place it in C ASP Activity 21. Then we will create an ASP.NET folder for app data. Inside that folder, we will add a new SQL Server database called Stud. We will create a new table called Students with the following fields: ID, name, and scholar. Then we will add three records. Let's create our website, file new website, and we'll call it Activity 21. Then we will create a folder, an ASP.NET folder called App Data. Inside it, we will add our database, a new item. Then let's look for SQL Server database and we'll call it stud for student. Add. Two files have automatically been added for us, the stud.mdf and another one with an extension of ldf. The second one is a log file and the first one is our physical database. Double click it if you don't see the Server Explorer yet. After double-clicking, you will see our stud.mdf under the data connection, and under it are several other items that we can create out of our database. We'll first create a table, so right-click the tables and add new table. The first is ID, the second is name, it is varchar 50, not null, and the last one is a scholar, and it is a beat. The beat is like the boolean in other programming languages. So to rename it, we have to go to our Transact SQL and type there our name. Then click Update. And again, Update Database. Now you can see here that the update is successful. To add rows in our table, right-click Tables again and refresh it. When we see the students table, the table that we just created, right-click again also and show table data. From here, we can add our three records, starting with 1, Ali, and it's true. Followed by 2, Mohammed, and again it's true. And the third one is Hassan, it's false. Okay, so we have already completed adding three records. The connection string describes our connection to the data source. It is usually implemented with try-catch finally. Here's an example of a connection string inside a web.config with the data source, the database file name, the security, and the provider name. To continue with our activity, using page load method in code behind, we will try opening and closing a connection with alerts. If we open our web.config right now, you cannot still see the connection string. So we'll play a little trick on creating that one. First, let's create our web form default. Then let's go to the design view and drag here our table. There will be two components that will be added. Please delete them afterwards. We will deal with them in our next tutorial. The important thing right now is that when we double click web.config, the connection string is already there. And currently the name is stud connection string 1. So let's go back to default ASPX. Let's go to the code behind. The first thing you have to do is to add all your namespaces. The first one is system.web.configuration. The second one are our namespaces for SQL Server, system.data, and the other one is system.data.sql client. There. Second. Let's now create our private string connection. Let's call it constr is equal to web configuration manager that connection strings. And if you still remember, our connection string is stud connection string 1. And this will be our connection string. So now we can go down and create our first SQL connection. Let's call it con is equal to new SQL connection, and our string is constr. So we'll now implement it using try catch finally. Catch exception ER. Don't use E because it will have a conflict with the previous E. And then the last one is finally. Okay, so let's start with try. For try, we will simply open it. Con.open. And then we will create an alert using JavaScript. Response.write. So we'll create a script file using JavaScript. Close it. All we have to use is alert. Connection is open. Then we can already close our script. Okay. We will create again another response, another alert for catch. We will see that there is a connection problem. And also for finally, we will close it. Con.close. And then we will create an alert connection is closed. Okay, so let's try to look at it in the browser. The connection is open. The connection is closed. Okay, so our connection is doing well. It's good. To continue with our activity, we will create two panels and change their back color. In panel 1, we will add a text student ID and a text box beside it. In panel 2, we will add a list box. When text box is changed, we will search if a record with that ID exists, and we will display all the details inside the list box. So let's go back to default ESPX, go to the design. We will create a panel. Where's panel there? We will change the back color to something like blue. Then inside it, we will type student ID, and beside it, we will put a text box. Then we'll create another panel. We'll again change the back color, this time something lighter. And then inside it, we will create a list box. Then we'll create an event for text box 1 text change. I think we don't need this snippet anymore, this code, so I'll just cut it and paste it here in text box 1 text change, so we don't have to retype this response. We don't need this anymore. This response for or alerts for opening and closing. So we'll create an SQL command. For our SQL command, we will simply locate a particular record that will be entered via a text box. So let's create the SQL statement. Select asterisk from the table students where the ID is equal to single quote, double quote, plus whatever is inside text box 1 dot text. And then we'll close it, double quote there, and using our connection, semicolon. Next is we have to create our data reader. Data reader, let's call it reader. Is reader. Then in our try catch, we'll execute our reader. It's command that execute reader. There, execute reader. Then we have to fill this reader by calling the read method. Okay. Okay, so that's that read now has certain values, so we'll put them all in list box 1. First, we'll clear all the items in list box so that the next time it's run, it's not going to continue adding and adding information. So list box 1 dot items dot add. Let's start with the ID colon plus the reader and the field ID. Next is for the name. So we will add the name of the student plus reader name. We forgot to close. Also here we forgot to close. And the last one is for the field scholar. List box 1 dot items dot add scholar plus reader scholar. Okay. Then kalas. So let's try to run it. If I enter 1, there, the records of Ali. If I enter 2, the records of Muhammad. To continue again with our activity, we will add a drop-down list beside the text box. Then we will fill it with the ID of all records in students table and order it by ID. When drop-down list is changed, we will search if a record with that ID exists, and we will display all the details in the list box. Okay, so let's go back to our default. This time, beside the text box, we will put a drop-down list, and we will enable auto pause back. Okay, so here in our page load, we have to fill it. We have to fill our drop-down list with these values. So let's start with, since we have to do this only once at the start of the creation of the page, the first time it was created, we will put this is post back so that it doesn't have to be done again and again. So what are we going to do inside? Again, we'll create an SQL connection. Con is equal to new SQL connection. I think this part we can already copy. So SQL command, let's continue. CMD is equal to new SQL command. So we will search for all all information in our database. Select asterisk from students. That's our table. And there is an order. We will order it by the ID and then our connection. Semicolon. Okay, so this time we will use a data reader. We'll call it reader. And again, this try catch finally. I think I'll just copy this try catch finally to make things easier for us here. So try catch finally. So we need this con. We will read, yes. But this time, we will read many items. It's not just one record. It will be several records. So we'll put this while reader.read. While there's something to be read, we will do this. Open and close here. So what are we going to do? We are going to fill this drop-down list. This drop-down list one, we will fill it with values of the ID. So that will be reader. The field is ID to string. Okay. Then when it's filled, the next thing we're going to do is that when we change it, okay, when we change it, so let's double click. We have to do something like here in text box text change. So I'll just copy this one also. Control C. This is from the text box one text change method. Paste. So the only thing we're going to change here would be this text box one dot text, and instead of that we will change it to the drop down list one that selected item. Okay, that's connection. Let's try to run it. Let's look at it in the browser. So if I select 2, that's Mohammed's. 1, that is Ali's. For our last activity here on the first part of Ado.net, we will fill the drop-down list with a combination of ID and name instead and order it by ID. So the idea is that our f- our drop-down list should not contain only ID but also the name. To do that, we have to create a list item variable. This is so that we can define the text and the value for the contents of the drop-down list. Let's call it new item is equal to new list item. Okay. Then first let's define the text value. New item. So this is what we will see. Text is equal to reader. Let's start with the ID and then followed by a comma and then the name. Okay, then we also have to set what will be the value. New item that value is equal to reader. Let's make it the ID and let's make it to string. Okay, so when we add the item, all we have to put here is the new item. Okay. Okay, now when we change it, This is no longer selected item. It should not be selected item, but this time we should let's look at the value, selected value. Okay, let's look at it in the browser. So the drop down list now has the combination of the ID and the name. So if you choose Hassan and if you choose Ali, okay. So thank you for watching this video. This is only the first part. Please make sure that you watch also the second part where we will try to add, edit, and delete some records.